What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Flame Entertainment and Sports. It's your boy Rob here. Hope everyone's doing good out there. Please remember to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening to us. It goes a long way, so we'd appreciate it. And also make sure to check us out on Instagram and TikTok at the flame_ES. On today's episode, going to be covering a lot of Dancing with the Stars. Last week there wasn't an episode. This week there was two. So we have a lot to get into with Dancing with the Stars. So that's going to be our topic in the entertainment world. Then the sports world, we're going to go into Miami Dolphins as they finally pick up a win against the New England Patriots to improve to 2-3. And this week is their bye week. So, they'll have a week to rest, to recover, study that playbook, and to be ready for their next game against the Indianapolis Colts next weekend. And we'll also get into some coaching news as the New York Jets fired their head coach, Robert Saleh, which is, super weird to fire your coach 5 games into the season. But it kind of makes sense in terms of the Jets, for the last couple of years, they've kind of been looking like a clown show when you think about it. So it was surprising to me because I'm a fan of him as a coach. But when you think of the organization, like I said, it's kind of been a clown show there for a while. I shouldn't be shocked that an organization like that made a decision at such a weird point in the season. So I'm going to give my thoughts on that. So yeah, those will be the main topics in today's episode. With all that said, let's get into it, starting off in the entertainment world with some Dancing with the Stars talk. Alright guys, so we're going to start off here in the entertainment world with episode 3 of season 33 of Dancing with the Stars. Last week, due to the vice presidential debate, there was no episode. So this week we had nights 3 and nights 4 of season 33. And, it was a great 2 nights to have, Dancing with the Stars. A lot of great performances, a lot of, disappointing performances, but mostly, really good and impressive performances by a lot of the couples, that continue to grow and get better week in and week out. And we did have an elimination on night 4, which was Tuesday night. But before we get into that, we're going to start off, with night 3. And night 3 started off with a dance by Phaedra and Val. And, Phaedra and Val, and by the way, night 3 of season 33 was Soul Train night. That was the theme of the episode. But yeah, the first dance of the night was Phaedra and Val. And this is a couple that, so far into the competition, the first couple episodes, I've been impressed by them. They've done better than what I expected going into the season. With that said, I thought this was their worst dance of the season. I kind of saw like some regression, if that makes sense. And yeah, I wasn't really entertained by it. I felt like something was kind of off in terms of the beat, or I don't know what it was, but it wasn't that great of a dance. But that said, for a couple of these scores, for those of you that don't know, whenever I cover Dancing with the Stars, I go couple by couple, giving my score, along with the actual, scores they receive from the judges. And with that said, too, I forgot to mention, on both of these episodes from this week, there was a guest judge. So obviously, the points changed. Instead of a max of 30 points, with 4 judges, you have a maximum of 40 points. So I'm glad I remembered that. And the guest judge for night 3 was Rosie Perez. She's she was a choreographer and dancer. She was actually a dancer on Soul Train back in the day. But I mainly know her as an actress. She was on this show called The Flight Attendant with Kaylee Cuoco on HBO Max. It's a really good show. If you haven't watched it, I recommend it. But yeah, so Rosie Perez, she was a guest judge. And you're going to hear a couple of scores me and the judges weren't really aligned on in night 3 of season 33. And that starts off with the first couple, like I was saying, Phaedra and Val. I wasn't really impressed. I gave them a 20 out of 40. And, they received a 30 out of 40, so good for them. Carrie Ann and Rosie Perez, they gave them 8s. And I didn't really understand it. And not to be like a hater, like to talk down. It's just, I got to give my opinions and what I feel about each dance, And I was really shocked by that score. I didn't really understand it, but like I said, good for them, So yeah, I gave Phaedra and Val, like I said, a 20, and they received a 30 from the judges, so we're 10 points off from each other. Then the second dance of the night was a couple that I feel had their best performance in this competition so far. That was Ilona and Alan. So Ilona and Alan, their first couple dances have been kind of, hit or miss. The second dance was better than their first dance, in my opinion. And then this third dance was even better than the second dance. So when you look at it, they've just continued to progress upwards, after each performance. And yeah, this was my favorite performance by far of Ilona and Alan. I thought they did a great job. With that said, I gave them a score of 32, and they received a 30 from the judges. So look, at least in that one, me and the judges were pretty much aligned. But I just don't understand how they got the same score as Phaedra and Val. I feel like they're way better, but then the day, I can't control the points they get in the competition, right? So yeah, so the first two couples received a 30. Then the third couple of the night was Eric and Britt. This was Eric's best performance of the season, I would say. In comparison to his previous two dances, I thought this was his best one. And yeah, I gave Eric and Britt 21. They received a 24 from the judges. So, we're pretty much aligned again, but, the judges went a little overboard once again with the scoring, but hey, it is what it is. Now we moved on to Steven and Riley, one of my favorite couples on this season. I always enjoy watching them dance. They bring a lot of, fun and like just good energy to the ballroom floor. And yeah, this was another great dance in my opinion. I really enjoyed it. I gave them a high score. I gave them a 39 out of 40. They received a 30 from the judges. So once again, kind of confused with how the judges are scoring this. But like I keep saying, I can't control it, and I could do it on here. Is give my opinion on it, and give the results of what the judges think. So yeah, look, three of the first four couples received 30s, and that was Phaedra, Ilona, and Steven. And then, of course, Eric and Britt received a 24 from the judges. Then, following Steven and Riley, we had Brooks and Gleb. This was I would say, one of my least favorite dances in the history of the show. I didn't really enjoy it. The beginning part of it had like nothing to do with dance. It was just them trying to like show off as a couple, and I just felt it took away from dance, right? At the end of the day, the show should be about like obviously it's about people who have never danced, learning how to dance, all that stuff. But I feel like specifically the pros should still maintain the main focus with their celeb partners on dance, right? And I just felt the beginning portion of Brooks and Gleb's dance kind of threw me off, and I didn't really enjoy this dance whatsoever. Um, and yeah, they're an interesting couple. You see, if you've been following them, you're a big Dancing with the Stars fan. In the last couple of weeks, they've been doing these pap walks, which are they call paparazzi, take pictures of them out in public as a couple. I guess to gain attention. I don't really know why they're doing it, to be completely honest, but yeah, I don't know. Brooks and Gleb, I didn't really enjoy this night three dance. I gave them a 16 out of 40. They received a 28 from the judges, which I didn't understand whatsoever once again. But I mean, like I keep saying, it is what it is. But yeah, some of these scores is just interesting. And specifically, I noticed Carrie Ann and Rosie Perez, they're like giving, some pretty high scores. And it was just interesting because some of their commentary didn't really match those scores, if that makes sense. But I mean, Rosie Perez, you got to give her a pass because she is a guest judge at the end of the day. But yeah, so Brooks and Gleb's dance there, I was expecting a lot more. I really enjoyed their second dance of the season. I thought it was a great one, and I called them the most improved couple after night two. And then yeah, this night three dance really it was disappointing. I was expecting more out of it. Then after Brooks and Gleb came my favorite dance of the season so far by Joey and Jenna. Joey just continues to shine each and every week that he's out there on that ballroom floor. I'm actually, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm actually wearing some orange right now because Joey and Jenna wore orange during their performance on Soul Train night. And yeah, like I said, my favorite dance of the season so far. It was so good, so on point, entertaining. It was just great all around. And yeah, this couple's chemistry just, continues to grow week in and week out. And I just can't wait to see the rest of their dances going forward. They're an incredible couple, and yeah, I gave I think my first perfect score of the season. I gave Joey and Jenna a 40 out of 40, and they received a 34 out of 40 from the judges. I don't know what was missing. Obviously, the judges are the dance experts. I'm not a dance expert whatsoever, so perhaps I missed something. But yeah, shout out to Joey and Jenna doing an amazing job. It was an amazing dance to watch. Following Joey and Jenna, We had a disappointing performance from Dwight Howard and Daniela. Obviously, Dwight, he's kind of been hit or miss. Week one he was kind of off with the steps, but he's always entertaining, great charm and charisma, great personality. So he kind of plays it off, and even if there is mistakes, you kind of don't notice because he's always smiling and he just has you engaged, right? But yeah, it came out that for this dance specifically, Dwight and Daniela only practiced for 3 days, and it kind of showed out there. You could tell Dwight, didn't have all the moves down or whatever you want to call it, everything down pack, right? So yeah, it was disappointing for them, but they are still, to me, one of the best couples on this show. And with that said, I gave them a 24 out of 40, and they received a 23 out of 40 from the judges. So at least on this one, me and the judges were finally pretty much aligned. So that's two so far that we're kind of aligned on. Then after Dwight and Daniela, had another athlete. We had Danny Amendola and Whitney Carson. Another amazing dance by this couple. I've enjoyed all their dances so far, just like with Joey and Jenna and Steven and Riley. I think Danny and Whitney just continue to get better and better. And you can see Danny getting more locked in each and every dance that he does. And yeah, it's just always fun to watch him go out there and perform. With that said, I gave them a 39 out of 40. So, a super high score. And they received a 30 from the judges, which I didn't understand. But as I said a couple minutes ago, they're the dancing experts at the end of the day. After Danny and Whitney, we had Reginald and Emma. Reginald, this was his best dance of the season. And I gave him and Emma a 21 out of 40. And that is what they received from the judges. So look, finally, me and the judges are exactly aligned. And the same thing went for the following couple, Jen and Sasha, as I gave them a 31 and the judges, gave them a 31 as well. So those two couples, at least me and the judges were aligned on. And then the final couple of night three, one of the favorites to win it all, Chandler and Brandon. Another amazing dance by this couple. They're just so entertaining, and Chandler just looks like a dancer, like a professional dancer every time she's out there. It's just crazy to watch her. I gave them a 39 out of 40, and they received a 36 from the judges. So, yeah, that was night three. Once again, shout out to Joey and Jenna doing my favorite dance of the season so far. And now we're going to move on to what happened in night 4 of Dancing with the Stars season 33. The guest judge for this night was probably, I would say, arguably the worst guest judge in the history of this show. His name, obviously, you guys know his name, Gene Simmons. He's a famous, rock star from the band Kiss. He was a guest judge. So just a reminder that the scores are different. Instead of a max of 30, you could get a maximum score of up to 40 points with 4 judges there. The first couple of the night on it was hair metal night, so it was like a rock theme. They're all dressed in their rock star styles and stuff like that. The first couple of the night was Danny and Whitney. I thought they had a really good dance. It wasn't their best, I would say. I thought their night 3 one was a lot better than this one, but with that said, this one was still good. I gave Danny and Whitney a 32 out of 40, and they received a 30. So that's a good start there. Me and the judges pretty much aligned from the get-go. Kind of cool. And then after Danny and Whitney, we had Reginald and Emma. It wasn't, it's tough to judge, certain people, right? Like you think of Danny and then you think of Reginald, he's in his 70s. He could hardly move. You could tell he's in pain out there. But you got to give him credit for going out there and trying his best each and every week and always entertaining the audience. So with that said, I gave Reginald and Emma 16 out of 40, and they received a 21 from the judges. So good for them, And then after them, we had Chandler and Brandon, who I thought had added another good dance to their season so far. Not their best, just like Danny and Whitney, but it was still a good one. And I gave them a 33, and that's exactly what they received from the judges. And following Chandler and Brandon, we had Brooks and Gleb, who thankfully had, an improvement in comparison to their night 3 performance. I gave Brooks and Gleb a 30 out of 40, and they received a 32 from the judges. And Gene Simmons actually gave them a 9, and a lot of people were mad about it. Originally, he put like his scorecard up, and it was a 10, and he plugged it in as a 9. So it was just like a weird thing all around. One of the many weird things Gene Simmons did. But so congratulations to Brooks and Gleb. I thought their night 4 performance was much better and much more dance involved rather than them just trying to show off as a couple. So I think when they just focus on dance, like Brooks is actually really good. I remember in the beginning portion of this dance, she kind of had, like her own moment by herself, and she looked like a dancer out there. So I feel if they really keep dance the main focus, this couple could be a sleeper in the competition. But it's gonna be interesting to see if they're able to maintain their focus on that ballroom floor. So yeah, shout out once again to Brooks and Gleb, a great improvement. And then we had Steven and Riley, who had another great dance. I gave them a 36 out of 40, and they received a 32 from the judges. I thought this was another entertaining and fun dance to watch by a great couple, and by arguably the favorites, right? To win the Mirror Ball this season, Steven and Riley. Another fun dance to watch. And after them, we had Dwight and Daniela, who thankfully had a much better dance in comparison to their night 3 dance, as I gave Dwight and Daniela a 31 out of 40, and they received a 29 from the judges. So me and the judges were pretty much aligned there. And yeah, you could just tell that they practiced more for this one, and Dwight was just much better. He was on point. He did a hell of a job, and I'm excited to see what they do next week. After them was Eric and Britt. Eric, just like I said with Reginald, it's hard to compare, right? All these couples. Obviously, you think of Eric and the chronic illnesses that he has due to having a stroke a couple of years ago. You just gotta commend these people for going out there and giving it their all and not giving up. With that said, I gave Eric and Britt a 17, and they received a 22 from the judges, so 1 point above Reginald and Emma there at the bottom of the leaderboard. Then we had Ilona and Alan. I gave them a 29. They received a 26 from the judges. Just in comparison to night 3, it wasn't as good, but it wasn't horrible either. There were a couple mistakes, but if you just cleaned up 2 or 3 mistakes, I think this couple would have had another impressive performance. But I know they're gonna bounce back next week and do a great job. Then after them, we had Jenna and Sasha. I thought this dance specifically was one of my least favorites so far of the season. It was disappointing because their night 3 performance, the Soul Train night performance for them, was one of my favorites of the season. And then to see them just regress on night 4 was not good to see. But I mean, hey, it's part of the process, and they just got to keep learning and getting better. I gave them a 20 out of 40. They received a 31 out of 40. Another confusing one there by the judges, but hey, what can you do? After Jen and Sasha, we had Phaedra and Val. It was a slight improvement from their night 3 dance. Not a huge one, but hey, the main thing is getting better little by little, and I think they did that in their night 4 dance in comparison to night 3. I gave Phaedra and Val a 21, and they received a 26 from the judges, so good for them once again. I gave them a 20 on night 3, they got a 30, and then on night 4, I gave them a 21, and they got a 26. So perhaps the judges, like them more, so good for them. And then the final dance of the night were my favorites from night 3, Joey and Jenna, and they had another amazing performance. Not as great as that night 3 where I gave them a perfect score, but pretty much super close, as I gave them a 36 out of 40, and that is exactly what they received from the judges. So it was good to see some more alignment right on night 4 in comparison to night 3 in terms of my scores and the judges actual scores. And then following all these dances, we had our second double elimination of the season. My predictions going into it, I had Phaedra and Val and Eric and Britt heading home. I got one couple right, one couple wrong, as Eric and Britt were eliminated along with Reginald and Emma. So now what is it? Now we're down to 10 couples, I believe. And yeah, next week will be night 5, and it'll be I think it's called most memorable moment or something like that. It's always a emotional night for all the contestants, and Mark Ballas, the Mirrorball champion, he's gonna be the guest judge next week, and a lot of people are obviously excited because he's Dancing with the Stars royalty, and he's an actual dancer, and a lot of people are disappointed with how Gene Simmons kind of acted here, as the guest judge. So I think that's gonna be great that they have Mark coming in next week, and that's gonna be a fun show. Next Tuesday night, 8 o'clock, live on ABC and Disney Plus, and I believe it streams the next day on Hulu. But yeah, 2 great nights of Dancing with the Stars. As I said, a lot of it, me and the judges weren't aligned on, but some of it in night 4 we were more aligned on than in night 3, so that's good to see. But yeah, it's great. There's some couples that just each and every week keep getting better, as I've mentioned. Joey and Jenna, Danny and Whitney, Stephen and Riley, Chandler and Brandon, and there's a couple couples right behind them, and another tier They just need to get more consistent, I would say. Like Dwight and Daniela, Joey and Sasha, Brooks and Gleb. I think they're right behind them, but they just need to just turn up the notch a little bit with that consistency. But it's a fun season overall, and to see these couples getting better each and every week kind of leaves it open and makes it more exciting and competitive and kind of uneasy to predict in terms of who's gonna be there at the end. So yeah, it's been a fun season, and yeah, I always enjoy watching Dance with the Stars and being able to talk about it around here on the podcast. And if you know any fans or anyone you think would be interested in hearing any of this Dance with the Stars talk, make sure to share it with them and give me your thoughts. You could comment on our Instagram at @theflame_es. Let me know what your favorite dances of this past week were and what you're most looking forward to for next week's performances. And yeah, I'll be back at it next week with my thoughts on night 5. Hope you guys enjoyed this. And yeah, now let's move on into the sports world. All right, guys. So now to get into the sports world, I'm gonna start off here with the Miami Dolphins. Some talk here. Thankfully, we finally picked up a victory. We beat the New England Patriots 15-10. We improved to 2-3 on the year after 3 straight losses. In week 2, week 3, and week 4, we finally were able to bounce back. Led by our quarterback right now, Tyler Huntley, who showed a lot of improvement in comparison to the Tennessee game. And I want to really shout out Mike McDaniel, because I feel that this was the first game this year where I really saw him getting away from all the shifts, all the trick plays or whatever you want to call them. He was sticking to that classic ground and pound style of football. And I think that's what a lot of fans have been asking for. And thankfully, Coach McDaniel this past week, he showed that he's willing to change and do what it takes, right, to help this team win. And I think a main reason was that we picked up this victory was in large part due to the return of our leading running back, Raheem Mostert. A lot of people forget last year Raheem Mostert had 21 touchdowns. This year, he played in week 1 against Jacksonville, but he had been sidelined with a chest injury. He returned this past weekend against New England, and he did a hell of a job. He did that. It was a classic Mostert game where, you try to bring him down and he breaks like 3 tackles. He's just a beast. He's a true leader on that field. And I feel that he really showed his leadership through action, and that's something that this team's been missing throughout the 3-game losing streak that we went on. I feel none of the big name guys or none of the high paid players were really leading by example on the field. Last week I kind of called out Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, because those are guys that we're paying a lot of money to, and you expect them to be leaders on that field. And I think little by little this past game, you saw Hill more engaged, getting open more. You saw Ramsey in the 4th quarter. That was probably his best quarter of the season. He really stepped up and did a great job there. But I think Raheem Mostert is the main catalyst, to all this. And I just really wanted to shout him out because he not only did he produce greatly on the field, but I really feel he just affected the whole team. It looked like a different team. It looked like a hungry team. We didn't look like the defeated team that we've been looking like the last couple of weeks. And yeah, I think a big reason for that is Raheem Mostert. So we're super happy to have him back. And what's great too? We're on a bye week this week. So look, he came back after 3 weeks out. He had a lot of carries, but thankfully, look, he has an extra week to rest, and he'll be ready to go for next weekend's game in Indianapolis against the Colts. Another guy to shout out, Jalen Wright, a rookie running back out of Tennessee. This was a game where he's received the most opportunities, and he did a hell of a job. I feel like him and Mostert were a great duo. Mostert's that ground and pound guy that you can't bring down. And then Jalen Wright's more of like that speedy guy, kind of like a Devon Achane. But yeah, let me read some of their stats here. See the box score really quick. So Mostert ran 19 times for 80 yards. And he also had 2 catches for 18 yards. And then Jalen Wright, he ran 13 times for 86 yards. And yeah, so they both had 80 yards rushing. They did a hell of a job. And you think of the total amount of carries. When was the last time we've done that this season? Mostert had 19 carries. Jalen Wright had 13. Devon Achane, by the way, prayers to him. He has a concussion. But he had 3 carries early in the game. Alec Ingold had a carry. Jonnu Smith had a carry. In total, we ran 41 times. And I think that's kind of what we've been asking. A lot of fans have been asking for McDaniel to focus more on the run. And look, he focused on it this past game, and we picked up the victory. I don't think it shocked anyone. And even when you think of the offensive line situation, obviously, in the pass blocking game, we're not the best. But in the run blocking game, I think we're not bad. I think we're good enough in the run blocking game. So you really got to use that and help. You got to use the strength, right, of that O-line group. And I think their strength is in the run game. Also, shout out to Teron Armstead, who missed last game. He came back in this one, and, he did a great job as always every time he's on that field. Another guy in the running game to shout out to and another leader is our fullback, Alex Ingold. He always does a great job. As a leader, vocally, he always blocks great. You just kind of, you let him lead the way in the running game, and you kind of just run behind him. And you're going to be okay. He's going to lead you to the right path. And I think Mostert, obviously, the chemistry they have together, you can't compare in terms of, Achane and Ingold or any other running back on this roster in Ingold. I just think Mostert and Ingold have great chemistry. And Ingold had a great game. And he ended, up having our game-winning touchdown on a 3-yard run in the red zone there. And, to help us pick up the 15-10 victory. And, we moved to 2-3, like I said. I think that's gonna wrap up my thoughts on the Dolphins. We're 2-3, like I said. It's our bye week now, and then next week we go to Indianapolis, and hopefully we're able to move on to get back to 500 at 3-3. I think that'd be pretty nice after everything that's gone on so far this season. Another injury to talk about. I already talked about Achane, but Javon Holland, the star safety, he hurt his hand in this one, and he ended up leaving stadium with a cast, and it looks like he has a broken hand, so he could be out for a significant amount of time. So, we're going to just have to do another next man up type of thing, and we need our guys in the bench to come up now and make big plays. With all that said, that's going to wrap up my thoughts for the Dolphins win against the Patriots. And now I'm going to get into stay in the AFC East, stay in the same division. As I said in the intro, the New York Jets have fired their head coach, Robert Saleh, 5 games into the season. The Jets are currently 2-3. Tied with the Dolphins, actually, for second place in the division, and they go and fire their head coach. I don't understand it. I think Robert Saleh, he's one of the most underrated coaches in the league. If you look at, I know his record's not great at all. You look it up, you're gonna be like, man, this guy's I think 15 or 16 games under 500. But if you really think about the product he's had to put out there and coach in his career, I think he's exceeded with the product he's had, right? The product that the front office is giving him. You think of last year, the Jets won 7 or 8 games. They had arguably the worst offense in the league, but due to Salah's great defensive mind, their defense arguably the best in the league last year. What that is? You win that amount of games with such an inconsistent offense, and then you come into this year. Obviously, I know, Aaron Rodgers, whatever, all these veterans you signed, but I don't know if Woody Johnson, the Jets owner, he knows that I don't know if he knows this. He's owned the Jets for a long time, but maybe he doesn't know. You need to give your guys time to develop chemistry. It doesn't just develop out of nowhere. It's not magic that you put them on the field and all of a sudden they're just their chemistry is on point right away. That doesn't make sense. So I don't really understand this move. I think it's a stupid move by the Jets. But like I said, this organization, unfortunately for their fans, it hasn't been well run for a long time now, for over at least 10 years, I would say. So it's just sad for the fans there, because they do have a good roster, and although they're 2-3, they lost last week. You even think of their last game in London against Minnesota, they're getting pretty beat up early on, and then in the second half they come back and they ended the game with a chance to tie it and even win the game, and they didn't come through, but just to show that fight and resilience to not give up and to keep going, especially against a team like Minnesota, who's only one of 2 teams that's undefeated right now. I just don't know how you fire a head coach after that, but what can you do? It's interesting to me. 2 of the best defensive minded coaches in the league are now on the market, so it's gonna be fun in the offseason to see where they land, and that's Robert Saleh and then former Titans coach Mike Vrabel. I'm super intrigued to see where they land in the offseason, because I think they're way better than the majority of the coaches in this league. But I don't know. I feel for the Jets fans right now. I'm not gonna lie. With that said, their interim coach is Jeff Ulbrich. He's he's been their defensive coordinator for the last couple of years, and obviously the defense has been amazing there with the Jets. But we don't really know if is it really Obrick's doing, or is it because Robert Saleh is such a great defensive mind? So it's gonna be interesting to see if he can man the ship the rest of the way. A lot of big personalities, a lot of big expectations, a lot of veterans there in that locker room, and he's never been a head coach. So it's gonna be an interesting scenario thing to monitor. An interesting team to watch now. They've already been interesting coming into the season, but now it becomes even more interesting, right? I remember him last season in the Jets were on Hard Knocks. I remember this guy. He's one of those like coaches that like screams a lot and gives those like big speeches, kind of like a Dan Campbell type of thing. But now he's gonna have to prove that he's actually a good coach, and not just a talker, if that makes sense, right? So yeah, those are gonna wrap up my thoughts. By the way, yeah, shout out to Minnesota, who I just mentioned. They beat the Jets. They move on to 5-0, and shout out to the Kansas City Chiefs as they beat the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football to move to 5-0 as well. That's only the only two unbeaten teams in the NFL right now. The Minnesota Vikings, who by the way, I meant to bring this up when I was talking about Robert Saleh. So it's interesting. Obviously, as a Dolphin fan, I look at Minnesota now with our old head coach Brian Flores running the defense there, and look how good they've been. So certain guys are just made for that, to run a defense, run an offense. So it's gonna be interesting to see in the offseason if Saleh gets another head coaching job, or if a team tries to get him, as a defensive coordinator to re-up his value for the following offseason. So I thought that was two guys to compare, right? Flores and Saleh. It's gonna be interesting to see going forward what happens, and who knows? Maybe even this coming offseason, Flores gets that head coaching job. We're just gonna have to wait and see. But yeah, shout out to Minnesota, Kansas City, doing a great job, 5-0, and the NFL is still wide open as we head into Week 6 this week, and it's super exciting. It's just open and competitive, and anyone really has a chance to still. So I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, with all that said, it's gonna wrap up the sports talk for this week's episode. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Flame Entertainment and Sports. Once again, make sure to keep up with us on Instagram and TikTok at the Flame_ES. Make sure to rate and review here on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening. Make sure to subscribe here as well. Subscribe on YouTube. Share with any people you think would be interested in this. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for more content coming your way. As always, new episodes coming, every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time. With all that said, till next time, everyone, take care.